Hey, this is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and this is Tuesday, December the 18th. This will be our chart lesson for today, and I'm going to try to speed through this today. I'm a little late getting it done. I apologize, but I've been in and out today. I came in a little earlier today and traded early, then left for a little bit, and then came back late in the afternoon. But took a couple of more trades, and it was really a pretty good trading day considering the time of year and that it's a Tuesday. Really what we had, I wasn't sure if it wasn't going to be a trading range day because you had a real tight, here's your overnight highs, here's your overnight lows. That's a pretty tight range of, say, 25 to 34, so about 9 points. I guess it's bigger than you think it is, but generally when you see those kind of tight highs and lows, you know, it ends up being a range day. And you might have got fooled up here, and we'll talk about that. I drew that area in green because there's a couple of different things going on up there, and I'll tell you what I see or what I was seeing when as I traded that, and just share that with you. But what we did, we started out with this little spike. This is a spike down, and then we went into this little channel. This is what you call a spiking channel, and you'll see this quite often. So if you're having a hard time, and you really, I think it would have worked either way. You might have drawn your trend line off those first two swings like that right there. But either way, you see that we still would have got the break at the same identical spot, and we would have had the retest. And so no matter how you saw that, it worked out the same. The only difference is you may not have taken, well, you still would have had that same trade right there. So no matter how you drew this, you got the same thing. But to me, I see a spiking channel. And you can see those were the highs, and here's were the lows. And pretty straightforward. But let me back out where you can see it a little bit better. And we'll talk about each of the trades. And like I said, I'm going to move through this pretty quickly today. But you had this trend line working down through here, this channel. And we just made the low about 822, so it wasn't like this was a strong overnight low. The stronger overnight low was right here, and we'd already broke below that. So this is a breakout pullback short. It's a big reversal bar coming off this trend line. Even if you'd drawn the trend line the other way, it was still coming off that trend line. There was enough room to scalp out before you got to the lows, or as you got to the lows here. And so I went short right here. Nice setup bar. And guess what? It got just enough. It got a little tricky right in here, and you might have gotten shaken out. But, I didn't see any reason to exit yet because a break above a doji usually just traps people when you turn down. So I hung on and got just enough ticks. I think it got 6 ticks, so just enough to get in, get out, and exit. No runners here, and then it reversed. This was your first break of the trend line. And this trade was a little bit tricky here, but when you get such a bullish bar and you break above it and then you turn straight down and close almost on the low, that's, even though it's a first entry, it's probably worth taking because you're still looking for the retest. But this one was a little tricky, and it is a breakout. Look, notice the highs across here. We broke out of that. We turned down. And it did turn up, and it was really scary when I saw this reversal bar right here. But I kept my stop a couple of ticks above this signal bar. That's what you want to do. And so it still worked out. And if you didn't enter here, you definitely should have entered here because now you got a lower high on a second entry, and it's basically a double top. And you're looking for the retest anyway. And so regardless of where you entered, pretty good trade, good for a scalp. Maybe a little bit more if you entered on this entry right here, but not anything big on the runners. Even if your runners survived, there wasn't anything big going on, and you might have considered exiting down here anyway because now you got a break of the trend line. I figured we'd get a new low, but we didn't. But you had to be paying attention to this double bottom here, and now we tested it again, and this bar closed almost on its high. So I wanted to go long right above that bar. It didn't get filled, but then we had this little tiny bar that was kind of a pullback, And so a break above that's also a second entry counting off the low. And if you went to a smaller bar, you'd see one leg up, a pullback, and then the next leg. And so it was still worth hanging on and entering right there. And this was the entry of the day, because if you entered here, any runners were safe, and you could have ridden them all the way, to these highs, anywhere in there. And you really could have held on all the way to the end of the day. So great entry. But if you didn't catch that one, there was another one right here. Let me show you this trade. This is notice that you got your new low. It's lower than these two lows right here. So you're moving up. You got a first entry short, fails. You go a little bit higher. You get a second entry short. It fails. And I was tempted to go short right here. But you've already had a trend line break and a retest, and you're already making new highs and new lows. So it was better just to sit tight. Notice all that overlap right in there. Just not a really good setup for a short. So when you got the second entry short and it reversed and closed on this high, notice how both those bars bounced right off that EMA. You had to go long right there, thinking that we're probably going to test these highs. And again, your runners were safe on that entry, and you could have ridden this all the way to the highs. So two great entries right there. And that let us, there's nothing else really going on in here. You might have entered right here because this is a breakout pullback, and it's really a couple of legs. You got a pullback, move up, a pullback, and then reversal. So it's really a kind of a two-legged correction, but it's just so much overlap that I don't like it. But you could have actually, you might have even considered entering there on a breakout pullback long to go into the next high. So if you did enter there, I wouldn't say it was a terrible entry because you do have these matching lows, the one tick lower, the trap, the close on the very high. So there's some reasons to take that, but I wasn't paying that much attention because I already had two entries here. I exited right in here when we got these two overlapping bars, and I'm mad at myself for doing that because I should have still been hanging on with the longs. But what I thought was going to happen, and this is why you don't always want to think ahead, was that we were going to end up in a trading range. At the very least, you're probably going to get some resistance here and a pullback. And so when we got these two matching highs right here that broke above, and they're way away from the EMA. Look, we've been away from the EMA since way down here. I went short right there, and it went a few ticks against me, not much, but then it got hung up in all this. And it finally broke lower, and I held on, and I just needed another tick or two right here. But when this one closed with these matching lows right here, that scared me out of this trade. So I exited on the next bar and got out right down here. And as soon as I did, it bounced. So I got out just in time. I think I made two ticks on that trade. And then it was off to the races. And you might have even thought about getting long right here because you figure, you may go back and test these highs. You may even go higher. So if you went long right there, it was okay because you could get in with a really tight stop because that's a one-tick bar. You may not have had a one-tick bar, but even that's only a two-tick bar. So you could get in with a really good stop. So it was almost worth going long, but I was too busy trying to get out of this short to really be considering going long. So I wasn't really thinking. So I didn't take this long, but you could have taken it. And it's not a great setup, and that's why I put all this in green. There definitely was no shorts in here. If you didn't get short where I did, there's no short here whatsoever. And in that case, you might have been thinking long. But notice here when we went higher and pulled back and ticked one tick lower and then turned back up, that's the same thing as a breakout pullback long. We got a nice strong uptrend. It was a little risky, but again, it would have worked and it would have been a good trade. And this is a strong trend, even though it doesn't look like it. This is one of those trends. Notice how far, we've just been away from the EMA forever. Prices can't even pull back to the EMA, and that's rare. So it was worth going long there if you saw it. I didn't take it. I was still trying to figure out what the trend line was. It was a little confusing. Was this going to be a failed break higher and turn down? I really thought we'd probably break higher and turn down, but we didn't. We ran all the way up here before we turned down. And so it just didn't turn into, we just didn't get the pullback there that I was looking for. And so, but anyway, that's why I marked that whole area in green, because there's a couple of different things going on there, depending on how you saw it. So, but then what I did was once we pulled up here and started making this, again, you could see that there was something along here. So what I did was I took this line and drew it across these highs. I said, that looks pretty good. And I just copied that line and drug it down and brought it to the lows. And you can see that right there. And at first I wasn't sure if it might be right there. And you can see that, you know, even if you'd have put it right there, it probably would have been okay. But I believe it's right there. And so that's how I found the channel. And there really was no pullbacks till right here, and you can see that. So once you had these two swings in place, and that gave me the confidence too that now we've had an overshoot kind of, you notice these little shoots, not a big overshoot, but we're overshooting it. And so when we got these two matching highs, I did the same thing I did down here. I put my limit sell order right there. We ticked one tick higher and turned down instantly. And but if you didn't go short right there, when we ticked higher and then turned down, you could have gone short below that bar, because now you got a trap. And so you should have been short right here. And if you didn't get short there, then definitely with that big bearish bar, you could get short right there. And it was even nicer because notice the next bar ended in that same, with that same low, and we went higher first and then turned down. So now you got kind of a little double trap there. And so you definitely should have been short at that point. And you should have, hopefully you saw this trend line by now and had this in down here just in case. And at the very worst, you might have had a reversal right there. So you had to be thinking that. And I didn't get any runners out of this because when we went into this right here, I just went ahead and exited. So I did get a couple points out of them, but didn't get to right. You probably could have got another point if I'd have held on. But when we went into all this overlap, I just went ahead and exited mine and started looking for longs. And I was looking for a long right down here. And I almost got long right here. And if you did, it may not have mattered if you used two ticks. If you'd used one tick below that little bar, you'd have got stopped out. But when you get a bar that small, I usually give it two ticks anyway if it's still within 2 points, because this is what happens. You get those one tickers like here and maybe down here. You know, it ticks one tick against you and it just stops. It runs all the stops and then reverses. So, and you might have thought about getting short right there, but there's not much room. If you saw the trend line, there's not much room to be scalping out. And at the very least, even if it only goes, what'll usually happen in these little ranges, it'll break out one side then and fail, break out the other and fail, and then reverse. So there's not a lot of room to play with right there. So it was better off just to kind of wait. And again, you might have gone long right there. And if you did, you might have got stopped out if you didn't use two ticks. But as soon as this reverse back up, this is where you really, this is a nice reversal bar. Look at that. It opened on its low, closed on its very high. You go long right there, and it was off to the races. And I had a lot of confidence in this one because I had my trend line right here that I found off the upper side. And guess what? Your runners are safe. You ride them all the way up, and nice entry there. And then again, you got you come back up, and you definitely should have had a line off those two swings. And even if you didn't have it there before, and just notice that when you start to see prices coming down and the reversing, start drawing lines, because and if you can't make them fit the upper side, it might fit a little bit later. So that's how you look for this stuff. And so when we got these two matching highs, I dropped a limit order right there, did not get filled. And so I went short on a stop right there, a nice reversal bar. you got to figure that we're coming back to the EMA. At least it's way down here, so you got plenty of room. And again, no runners here because it bounced right here after you got your 4 ticks. And so no runners on this, but it didn't go much further anyway. And then here's you another chance to get long off the trend line. Good for just enough for a scalp. And then finally, now we get a break of the trend line. And so you don't want to be going short. There's not really a good long setup here because a lot of times you'll run some more stops. You'll come back and maybe get these break-even stops and things down here where you got that little gap. And so I didn't think it was worth going short right there, but there was not a good long setup. And if you had gone short, it would have worked. But I just thought it was too risky. I didn't take it. I didn't recommend it. But what you had to be thinking, once you saw it working its way on lower here, this is what you had to be thinking. You had to be thinking, okay, there's leg 1, and there's leg 2, and look, we missed it by maybe a tick right there. We went 1 tick further. And so I use that not for a target on my short, but I use it for a target of an area to be looking to get long. So when we had these 2 overlapping bars right here, I dropped a limit order right there, and it ticked 1 tick lower, got me into the trade, and then reversed and went higher. And that was a great setup, and this is a great reversal bar. So I added I dropped another order right there and added on. So I had a double load of orders right here. Easy scalp on both of them. The runners, what I did was once I got scalped out of this trade, I moved everything to break even right here, which was a mistake. I should have kept my break even on my first set down here, so I would have had some more runners here. But I got stopped out on my runners on this, so I only got, but I had a double scalp, so it was 2 sets of contracts that I scalped out on. So pretty nice trade. And then you had this little 2-legged correction. You had a double bottom, a failed break lower, and this is another reversal bar. And you got to be thinking long at some point. Every time you see a reversal after this trend line break, you got to consider it if it's a good setup. This is a second entry long right here. And so I went long right there. And this time it was a little bit scary. I thought it was going to turn back down again, which it did turn back down, but only temporarily, just enough to trap people, a few people out, shake a few weekends out, and then it turns up again. And this time the runners were safe, and you got about 3 or 4 points out of the runners, and that was pretty much it for today. This trade, now I want to say this trade was real close to the 230 close, but it was such a good setup, and you got to be looking for the retest that it was worth taking. So so I marked it, and I took it actually because I was I'd come back in and started watching the charts all over again and looking for some more good trades. And because it is the holidays, I've been kind of stepping away, coming in a little late sometimes, stepping away here and there when it gets kind of quiet or boring. But it really was for a holiday day, it really was a good day. And there wasn't much happening between down here and here, other than it was going up. There weren't any entries. And, really following the rules. There were 1, 2, 3, 4 entries all day until late this afternoon. So, again, normally you don't want to be taking these trades, unless you really know what you're doing. They're risky, and if they don't work out right away, you're better off to exit them. And so I just don't recommend them really. That's why they're in green. This was the only one I really liked because it was the second overshoot without coming back down. And I wasn't quite 100% sure that was right either, so I was really still gambling a little bit or taking a chance. But sometimes you got to be a little bit aggressive if you want to get a chance to make some money. You just don't want to do that. You don't want to do that every day. You don't want to be guessing. If you think you know what's going on, that's one thing. But if you're just guessing, that's a whole nother thing, and that's where you're going to lose money. So, but anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. That was the pretty much it for today. I'll see you tomorrow. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.